Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show, featuring Peggy Fiandaca, who, along with her winemaker husband Kurt Lawrence Dunham, owns and operates LDV Winery in Arizona. Hey everybody, today we are talking sangria and summer wine. Yeah, because you know what? It is June and it is great outdoors month. So you want to sit outside, poolside, have some wine, maybe go early morning hike, and then end your day at the pool with some wine, maybe some sangria. It's, that backyard barbecue season is here. Summer officially arrives in the month of like the 20th or something this month. But in Arizona, it is summer. I don't care what you say. It's summer, right, Peggy? How are you?
I am doing great. But yes, it is summer. It is getting warm, getting
Yeah.
above 100 on a regular basis. But it's a dry heat, so it's not so bad in June. It really isn't. I know it's crazy for people around the country to hear that, but low hundreds in June is not bad at all.
My hair prefers it. Like, don't look at my hair today, everybody, but it's kind of like, it's a rainy day in Madison as we're recording, but I don't care what you do with the hair dryer. It ain't coming back to life. But but when you get out in the desert, it's like your hair is happy,
Yeah,
it is happy. You can walk outside, it's great. And we'll be back in July. So we can't wait because the
great.
monsoons come in pretty much towards the end of June, or is it July when I can't
It,
remember. It's kind of.
well, it depends on what part of the state you're at, but yeah, it starts in July usually, but
Mm.
it depends.
How's the vineyard doing in the
Oh
summer
my
now?
gosh. Yeah, the vineyard, it's an exciting time, I think, in the vineyard. It looks beautiful. It is lush and green. I don't think we've had a more beautiful set of fruit, as well as just the look of the vineyard is first class. So
Oh,
we're excited about that. And we have a nice fruit set on all of our varieties that we have, the four varieties: Viognier, Grenache, Syrah, and Petit Syrah. All of our babies that we planted this year are doing well. They're popping up the vine, and so we
oh,
got that they survived and are doing really quite nice. And so yeah, in June we talked about suckering. In May, that was the term of the
not
month.
sucker punching, but
Not sucker
suckering.
punching.
So
Yes,
everyone go
suckering.
look at the archives.
Uh-huh. So we're finishing up that suckering in June, early June, and tucking the vines into, because they grow like weeds. And so we have to train them. And so we are tucking them into the fruiting wire and
Oh,
finishing that up this month. But the other thing that's happening in June is we're going to do green harvesting. I don't know if we've ever talked about that before,
no.
but that's when we go through the vineyard and drop fruit that
Yeah.
I know I hate this, but I hate doing it because you see this beautiful cluster of fruit starting, and we drop it on the ground because we want to focus the energy and focus the nutrients to the fruit set that we want. And so we have a lot of fruit. So we're going to drop this year. We don't do that every year, but we are going to green harvest this
Oh,
year.
so when you do that, is it again for aeration during summer?
Well, it's more for the concentration of the fruit, or the nutrients to the fruit that we want
Okay.
to develop. And the same thing as when we're trimming back pruning the vines, we want to make sure that we are concentrating the fruit and allowing the most efficient development of that vine to
Mhm.
occur. So,
So
yeah.
when you're doing that, does that help with the sugar content? The
Well,
bricks,
yeah,
isn't it the bricks? Am I getting this?
it's bricks are the sugar.
Ooh.
It's the measure of sugar. Yeah, when you're allowing the only the amount, you don't want a vine to be overtaxed with too much fruit on
Mm-hmm.
it, right? Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so when you have when Kurt, the vintner in the field, has an idea of how much fruit each vine should have on it,
Mm.
then you drop, and then you concentrate all the nutrients to that what's
Okay.
left, and that'll allow those clusters to really grow beautifully and
Mm.
develop the bricks over time.
Is
Yeah,
this because you've had like such a good, growing season already for spring? So this was a little bit more prolific than before. So you have to kill the
correct.
babies. I hate saying that, but it's
I
true. We say that
know.
in the writing world and video
Yeah,
world, like your baby. And somebody else said, no, there's a better term. And I always use it in the most inappropriate places. But yeah, it is cutting the babies, the ones that you like, oh, but it's so like you're saying, it's so cute. It looks beautiful, but you know that that's gonna now, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
so are they the runts? Like, are they almost like
No,
that
they're
sounds
not the
really
runts
bad.
necessarily. They're nice. I mean, nice fruit. That's why it's hard to do it. But we do it earlier in the season, like in June, because you don't want them to develop much further than the little green berries that are on
Mm,
the vine now. So yeah, you just have to. It's all about really caring for the vines and making sure the vines are really prepared to produce the best quality grapes we possibly can.
mm.
And so green harvesting is something we need to do.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And then what happens to the fruit? Do the birds get it? Like what?
Yeah, the
You just
birds
kind of
get
let it go
it.
to the nature.
Yeah, yeah, we'll till it into the ground when we, because also not only are the vines growing like weeds, the weeds are growing like weeds. And
Oh,
so
okay.
So mowing between the rows and maintaining that the row soil between the rows are real critical. So mowing is a lot during the summertime, just
Wow.
like everyone's lawn back east.
Yeah. Well,
Got
I
to
know
keep
that.
mowing.
Oh, trust me, I traveling around, people are mowing every chance they get, and I'm like, good, because you know what's in that grass. You
Yeah,
don't want to be walking without being able to see. You know what I mean?
right,
So
exactly.
you're in Arizona. You know there's like slitheries out there too. So you got to be able to see what you're doing in the fields, right? That's a concern for you guys too, isn't it? Like being careful
Absolutely.
out there.
Absolutely. They are out. The rattlesnakes and the green Mojaves, which are the worst,
Oh.
are out and about. We haven't seen one yet, I don't believe, in the vineyard, but yeah, you got to be very careful. You got to wear boots,
Mm,
even in the summertime, no open-toed shoes. And so our staff is very well prepared. We got to watch animal, or, if you bring dogs to the vineyard, you got to watch the dogs if they're
mm,
not snake trained, but
mm.
yeah, you got to worry about those things.
Yeah, and when you say about bringing animals to the vineyard, that's really when you talk about travelers that come through, right? You've got people
Right,
through Harvest Host, if they have this
right,
self-contained vehicle to sleep in, right? Not an RV, a self-contained trailer, RV, that kind of thing, right?
right, exactly. And they may not be familiar with the Southwest, and they may not be familiar with the type of snakes that we do have, and to be watching out for those, watching where you step.
Mhm.
What are javelina and why is that
Oh,
pig
we
running?
love the javelinas.
You know?
I do.
So
I
we
love
do a
them.
little education with people not to, be aware, where you're walking, where you're going and just be on the lookout. But it's beautiful to see all the
I
animals and
I love it. And I
yeah,
think summer is such a beautiful time in the southeast portion of Arizona where the vineyard is. It is like beautiful at this time of year. You have
correct.
wildflowers. It's like the fifth season comes in because they say like that region, Tucson, the Sonoran Desert has 5 seasons, but now you get into the Chiricahuas, which starts to open up a whole other, you're in that other tweener zone of terrain, which is really fascinating. That's why you have such good
Right,
wine and the
right,
fact that you know how to
exactly.
make it. you know.
Yeah. Well, it starts in the vineyard, absolutely, and our soils and maintaining the quality of those soils, as I've talked about in the past, we have volcanic soils and we monitor the soils very carefully to make sure that we don't strip out any nutrients and that we're replenishing them very effectively. Not only because then our water management is better if we take care of our soils, since that's such a precious resource, but also it just makes sure that our vines have the proper nutrients to really grow well. And it's
Nice.
proving out this year that everything is aligned so far.
I'm excited to see what happens at harvest. Aren't you guys kind of like, you don't want to
Gotcha.
push the envelope though. You can't. You just gotta like, oh, the patience you have, like
Yeah,
for waiting it out, waiting for wine to be ready, and then the patience for what the weather does to you,
right.
and then when you get good stuff, it's like thank your lucky stars at that point. Do you ever feel like I'm talking to the gods, like thank you so much, when things go well?
Oh gosh, yes. As I've said before, Kurt is such a worrier anyways,
Mm.
so he worries every day. He's constantly on his phone looking at the irrigation system and what rows are being watered and then he has the weather station on, two different channels. And so he's constantly trying to control a lot of things that's out of his control, but um
See, I'm on your side of the industry. I'm going on your side. I
Yeah,
think I think I'd end up drinking a lot more wine than I should if I was on Kurt's side. And you
right.
can't, you can't. I think that people actually also need to understand, like, it's like a person that owns a bar. The
Yeah,
number one rule is don't be the client of the bar. You can lose
right,
your bar over that, right? And as a
right.
winemaker, you have to kind of balance that. There's tasting, but not like I'm going to drink the whole bottle every day, right?
Right,
There's like
right,
you have to balance, right?
right.
Because,
Because you have access. You have access to a
oh,
lot of wine. You don't have to have to go too far out of your house, and you have plenty of wine to drink. So yeah, no,
yeah.
everything in moderation, and we want you to truly enjoy it, enjoy what we do, the quality of what we do, and you can't do that if you're just downing the wine to get drunk.
No. That especially there's that one dessert wine. You don't want to be going too far with that.
Oh gosh,
That's the
yeah,
woo 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 one. That's the
yeah, it
romantic wine.
is.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you want the perfect balance of that because if you go too far, then you've lost your moment. Like
Right. Right.
you got to time it perfectly, right? I
Wait,
love this.
this is a GP kind of
I know.
show. We got to be careful.
I know, but you know what I mean. It's like, come on, you got to time it, because you don't. Yeah, I think with the wine that you have is about sitting and savoring with meals, with people, and it's not table wine. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
It's really good, fine wine, and I don't know. I enjoy. It's so much fun. Your wine is fun too. Yeah. So that sounds really weird to say, but I think it's been left off of the description palette of wines. It's always about all the different things you taste and everything, but some wines are so there's people get so serious. I think there's also a sparkle of fun to your wine. Maybe it's that you've created a really good wine experience too, but it's fun. Does that make any sense?
it does make sense because I think what we try to do is our wines are intriguing. So
Yes.
they kind of spark conversation
Hmm.
because they are intriguing and people are surprised by the nuances of the different flavors and
It's
what
like
they're
layered.
feeling.
It's a
It's
multi-layered
very
thing.
layered. It's very
Hmm.
layered, just like an incredible meal you might be having. I mean, I think it was for my birthday or no, for our
Hmm.
anniversary. We went to this wonderful place in Scottsdale called Course. And I think it was 12 or 14 different courses. I can't recall. But every one of the courses were so intriguing and nuanced and beautiful. I mean, he put art on the plate, but you just talk about it and are you picking up the touch of fennel in that or the bit of spice from the cinnamon or it was just fascinating and we were there for 4 hours and just enjoyed every single plate that he put in front of us,
And again,
so it
it's
was a treat.
temporary art. It's
It
temporary
is.
art, right? Which makes you really have this value system of really being in the moment because that moment will be gone. You
Yeah,
cannot hold on to it other than have some kind of sense memory. And you could be chasing that for years. Like I think I told you before, I've chased a mole
yeah,
for years and I still can't find my mole. And we'll talk about that in September. We're going to talk moles,
yes,
and
exactly.
pairings, but you just that is an appreciation when something comes and goes, and the fact that you're working close with your vineyard is that too. It's like
Correct.
that, ooh, comes and goes. We'll enjoy that moment, write it down maybe. And I've been like I think it sparks creativity. I was thinking about this the other day. I
Right.
think it was after one of our shows and with you, and I was like, there's so many different tastes. Like we've talked about where you can have diesel and gasoline taste. You can have
Right.
leather. You can have things that if you didn't know that that's okay, you would you would think to yourself like, dude, I'm nuts. Like, why
Yeah.
that is this wine bad, or is this, if I got a bad palate because I'm picking up, but it's real, right? It's
Right.
part of that thing, which is interesting. But I was thinking about that also, what do those flavors make us feel as individuals? Like if
Correct.
you have carrots, for example, and this is where my mind went, there's a freshness to a carrot.
Right.
So does that make you feel something different?
Well, it does, especially depending on how that carrot is manipulated
Oh.
and cooked and so on. I think um, a good chef or a good winemaker is trying to curate an experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have an experience, it brings up emotions. And that's the wonderful thing about, I think, food or even wine, I
Oh
hope,
yeah.
creates that memory
Mm-hmm.
that you had. And you can remember, like your mole example, you can remember it years later of not only the taste, but you remember who you were with when you ate
Mm-hmm.
that, and you remember the conversations that you had, and you remember
It's like music.
that the
Yeah.
music that was played.
Yeah.
That's, I think, when you take the time and really experience food and wine, it's exciting and
And
it's
it goes
special.
like those simple. I remember when we were tasting your Viennese, when we're at the vineyard last year with you and
Yeah.
Kurt, and it wasn't ready to be released. Are those baby bring those babies out? We want the babies,
They're
and those
coming.
they're good babies. And I remember tasting fruit like pawpaw or papaya that was different than what we were having in this country, and lychees and all kinds of different things that you wouldn't normally pick up here in our sphere like normal,
Right.
and
Right.
tasting things and going, I hate to be weird, and you're like, no, bring it. I want to hear the weird, but it's interesting because I wonder about that. And those are those sense memories. So a lot of times well, you do that in some of your events at the winery, at the tasting room, right? The
Yes.
smell and the taste and how all of that balances out in our world.
Because that's the part of wine tasting that is maybe not as approachable to a novice that's just getting into wine. They don't they don't understand necessarily what they're tasting or what the words to use to describe it. So we do a class, L'Inez Divine,
Mhm.
aromatherapy for wine lovers, and help them think about what they really are tasting in the front of their mouth, in the middle of the mouth, and the finish, as well as what they're smelling, because you're going to, the sense of taste is so controlled by your sense of smell.
Mm,
And you smell so many more things
mm.
than you actually do with your mouth. That's why when you have a cold, you can't taste anything. Because
Oh,
you've lost your sense of smell and you really
mm,
can't taste them. So giving people, why would I want dirt or sandy gravel in my when I taste wine? Well, it adds a different nuance. And the exciting thing about grapes, I think, is that when you ferment a grape, it tastes totally different than anything else but a grape. But when you ferment bananas or any other kind of fruit, it still tastes like cherries or bananas or apple. But a wine grape will taste like, the bananas. It could taste
mm.
like cherries. It could taste like mold,
Apple.
spices, apples, all those
Mm,
kinds of things. And that's
mm.
fun. And I think that's what we try to do is make wine approachable by giving people some tools to think about when they're tasting wine.
One thing I wanted to ask you about this is going to be weird.
Okay.
So, summertime, we're all going poolside, we're barbecuing, we have the pool. Okay. So you have some friends over and we want to bring out your wines and say, like, here, we're going to have a tasting experience. But because of aromatherapy, so one thing is like when we're outside at the barbecue, maybe you want to take your glasses inside, but then I always see people really stick their nose right in, like you could have a honker, and you're going to stick it right in that glass because you need to surround your nose
Right,
within. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm thinking about pool. Sometimes if you've just cleaned your pool, you're going to have that chlorine smell. And
right.
sometimes when you're grilling, and sometimes you get that gassy smell. It depends on who's doing what, So maybe you want to clean things and do that a couple days before you have the party so you don't have that scent. But those scents can actually be pretty strong depending on the
Right,
person. So
right.
can that affect your wine tasting experience if those kind of smells are there? So you want to kind of move your party away, or does it matter?
Oh, absolutely. It impacts your enjoyment of the wine and to really
Okay.
taste the nuances. At that point, if you're doing that kind of a barbecue, just get some great wine that you can chill and enjoy and not spend time, trying to really
Unless you do
think
it in
about
the
the
inside. Do
nuances.
it inside, then come out,
Yes,
taste it on
yes.
the inside, smell it, do all of that, and then go outside. Keeping wine cool. All right. Somebody said to me the other day, "Oh, don't you and Nancy need ice for your wine?" And we both looked at and went, Peggy would say no. And we say no to. But isn't
Yeah,
that now? So what happens? It can happen where your wine is not at that temperature. And we're gonna talk sangria, and I know we got to get to the word
yeah,
of the day and some
yeah.
other things. But what happens? You're poolside, and then you're like, dude, the wine isn't chilled. You didn't. Somebody forgot to put it in the wine cooler or the refrigerator. What do we do?
A great way to do is put your glasses in the freezer and chill
Oh,
your glass or put, ice in the glass, fill the glass and then shake it and let that will make the glass a little bit more chilled and then pour your wine in it. Take the ice out, but then pour your wine in. Now, if you're going to be drinking your wine fairly quickly, before all the ice melts, because that's the problem with ice in wine is that it melts and then it dilutes the flavor of the wine
we
with the
don't want
water.
that. No.
No, you don't want that. So I'd rather have you chill your glasses or have it. I mean, if you have to have an insulated glass for outside, they have those insulated wine glasses now that it'll keep them in your freezer and they'll be chilled
Oh.
and for a nice crisp wine. But again, you don't want your white wines as cold as people tend to have them. Because that, again, if you're really wanting to enjoy a white wine, it needs to be a little bit more than room temperature, depending on where you're living or
Mm.
how cool your house is. But so the nose, the aromas can really come through. Because if it's too cold, you won't get any of the aromas in
Oh, so
wine.
what happens with the ice wine? Does it have to go there? It's
Well,
not frozen when you get it.
well, ice wine is a process that you're
Yeah.
you're you're actually producing the wine. It's not
Mm.
that it's frozen wine. You're not making a wine slushy.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Ice wine.
I was just
But most
messing with
people
you.
wouldn't know. Most people wouldn't
Yeah.
know that. So
Okay. All
I
right.
think no, that was not a joke. And a lot of people do not know what ice wine really is, and
Yeah,
so
I
on.
mean it's fascinating and it's so sweet. It's almost like a after dinner kind of
Right, right,
wine.
right.
So June, I know you've got a lot of different events. So everyone, ldvwinery.com is a website to go to. I encourage you to get their newsletter. It'll keep you up to date with events, the podcast, videos. Kurt does awesome videos in the vineyard, and you have some charcuterie making classes, winemaker wine time. So that's like a discussion, right? That you have every month with you and Kurt going
Yes,
to the tasting room.
yes, I try to put Kurt to work outside of the vineyard and
Clean
interact
up,
with people,
clean under those fingernails.
clean them up and send them out to talk to people. And yeah, people, I mean, how often can you go to a tasting room and meet the winemaker? Probably never, unless you make a special appointment. So Kurt at least once a month, spend some time talking about a topic. And so it's wine time with Kurt. Or like we just recently did a library tasting where we took old vintages out of our cellar and invited people, mostly wine club members, but it was open to the public also. And they got a chance to taste how our wines from 2010 and 2008 or 2009, I think they tasted this time, and 2011, how they're aging. And they're aging beautifully. I think only one Grenache they felt like, it tastes wonderful, but it's not going to age much longer. I think it was a 2011 or 2012 Sky Island Grenache. So that was fun, and they got to talk to Kurt about the library wines and everything. And so I think in June, I'm trying to think of what the topic is. We're going to be talking about blending and blends. Yeah.
Well, we like that.
Yeah, and most people have no clue. They say, "Oh, I like a blend, wine blends," but they don't really understand what that means. And then how we do our blending. It's not different grape varieties. It's actually actually same grape variety from different types of barrels that we blend together. So he'll be talking about that and explaining that, and we'll taste some blends and see what they're all about. But the other fun event we have coming up is we're doing our wine and art event where we've partnered with a wonderful art gallery, fine art gallery in downtown Scottsdale. And we host this, it's the third Friday, it's a Friday night, fun night. And we pair 3 different pieces of art with 3 different wines. And we talk about why we chose the particular wine to pair with this piece of artwork or sculpture, painting, or whatever it might be. And the gallery owner, who is also an incredible sculptor, then talks about the piece of art and what his inspiration was for the piece of art. And then Kurt or myself or one of my staff talks about our wine and the inspiration behind the wine and how we chose it to pair with this particular piece of art. So it's so awesome. And people get to taste the wine as we're discussing and ask questions about the artwork and the artist and the winemaking and so on. So it's just a fun date night, fun evening.
That is cool.
Because it's the art of wine and the art of fine art is.
Which makes sense for Scottsdale, I love that. I love
that. And the inspiration behind both is so similar. So
what artist didn't drink wine while they were painting?
Yeah.
Sculpting, you may want to be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, whoops, there went the thumb, but then look at Van Gogh. Like, I don't know, just kidding. But I love that because it really brings in those values. We were talking about the actual value of art, which is priceless. There is no value like that you can really pinpoint.
And I think what we're trying to do is just like what we're trying to do with wine is to make it approachable for the average person. Where art is sometimes intimidating, and we're trying to make fine art approachable to the average person. So understanding the inspiration, and there's no dumb questions about either one. And so it's a fun event that we're starting in June. We're doing it all summer.
Now, I see that there's Celebrate Rosé Week, June 17th through 23rd, very important. And July 22nd through 28th is Celebrate Syrah Week. So this is really important. We should all put that on our calendar. Rosé Week, I want to say this is important. I know you've got some fabulous rosés out, right? This is good timing for you guys with your rosés. But can we be reminded about rosé is not always the typical pink grape that we see that someone may take to a barbecue that we don't want.
Correct. Well, the key thing is rosé is not a type of wine. It is a winemaking style. So it's you make wine in the rosé style, and rosé can be made out of all kinds of grape varieties. We happen to make our rosé out of Grenache, which is the type of grape. But you can get a rosé that's made out of Graciano, out of Cabernet, out of Sangiovese. It could be a combination of wines that you could make rosé style, but they're wonderful. And the color can range from almost as white as my shirt or or like a white wine, all the way up to a look of a Cabernet. So it's not always that bright pink color that you might find in a rosé in the grocery store. And the color comes from obviously the winemaking style and how long the wine was in contact with the skins of the grapes. It'll give it a darker color depending on how long it laid up with the skins. But rosé is exciting, and we're about to bottle our 2023 rosés. I think I talked about last month, and I'm excited about them. They are just the aroma from them. Just walking in the winery when we're working with them is just amazing, and the taste is incredible. So we're excited about those rosés, and your vignettes are being bottled. So the
Our
2022,
babies that we have nothing to do with, but we feel attached to.
you
Like,
have ownership.
when you're a kid, you had to walk around with a little egg in your hands, you know. So
Yeah,
that's what I feel like. I'm like, my gosh, all right, these little babies, that you do all the hard work for, that we got to taste, in their teens and get to meet them then, and now we want to meet them as adults.
right. Yep. So that's what we're doing in the winery.
Ooh,
We're bottling both the rosés and the 2022 vignettes,
ooh.
and we're very pleased. You remember, I think last month or the month before, we tasted the vignettes, and they were not playing nice. They were
Yeah.
not they were acting up a little bit, but now they're beautiful. They've come along. They
Did you
settled
smack
down.
them? Did you give them
I
a little?
smacked them around. Yeah.
Peggy's like, listen, we got summer, and people want Viognier for summer, and then we got fall
Right.
coming. You belong out here. Get on with it.
Yep. So they came around, and they're beautiful. What's kind of fun is we're finalizing the formulas for our 2019 reds. And I
Wow.
think I mentioned we did some last month. I told you we did some preliminary tasting of all of the 2019 reds, and a lot of wonderful, wonderful fruit are coming through on those wines. So I think in May, Kurt and I will finalize, or excuse me, in June, Kurt and I will finalize those formulas, and we'll start maybe putting them in the bottle, trying to sneak it in before harvest really gets up and running. I mean, the key for getting the rosé and vignettes bottled is we need the tank space. We need to open up those tanks
Oh,
so they're ready for harvest to pull in our vignette and whatever else we
wow.
might need.
Oh, that's a balance. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to move some wine out of the winery to get ready for, or out of the barrels and the
Well, you
tanks
know
to
who
get
could come
ready
help
for.
you?
Yeah.
Quite a few people I know. Don't
Yeah.
just ask me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually, that's a lot of fun doing the bottling and doing the work in the winery. It's much nicer than being in the vineyard and doing the work out in the vineyard. It's
yeah, that's hard work. I mean, all of it is hard work, honestly, with what you
right.
guys are doing. I want to go to, Syrah week. I think that's interesting. It's in summer, but I'm sorry, I don't care what time of year. I'm a Syrah, just
Yeah.
it's everything to me.
It's a beautiful grape. And Syrah, now the Syrah, Syrah, not the petite Syrah,
Yeah,
but
with an eye.
Syrah, yep. But Syrah is such a beautiful
Mm,
grape, and it makes incredible wine. And it's perfect for the barbecue. I mean, everyone is finally dusting off. I mean, in Arizona, we grill year round, but in parts of the country, they're
mm,
dusting off their grill and cleaning it up and getting ready to start barbecuing. And a Syrah is a perfect for
mm.
grilled meats and vegetables and things like that.
And around the fire at the evening, oh my gosh, like if you have a nice fire pit and you sit around, and it's like even after dinner, to me, it's just a good conversation drink, like slowed down, not like patio pounding. But
Right, and it's a wonderful, we do a lot of marinating of our meats before we grill. And Syrah is a wonderful marinade,
mm,
wine to use in your marinade. So yeah, definitely find some Syrah in the marketplace and try some.
with the Syrah, like when you marinate, like tomato has that acid, right, and lemon, and it will actually break down the meat. Will the wine help break down meats too?
Oh, absolutely, because there's the
Mm,
acidity in wine also. So that's why you use it, but it also, imparts flavor into whatever you're marinating it in too. But
mm.
yes, because it has acid in it also, and that's why you
Now,
use
we're going to go to your sangria recipe, and everyone, the sangria recipe is up on blendradioandtv.com and is linked in the show notes. So is ldvwinery.com. So check it out. I love that you're using your Grenache in this, right? But I was wondering,
it.
could you use a Syrah?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the Grenache has it's a little bit lighter and a
Yeah.
little fruitier. So it depends on if you like a bolder taste to your Syrah or excuse me, your Sangria, then absolutely use your favorite. But you don't want to use a sweet wine for this. You want more of a drier, fruitier wine for Sangria. And
Mm,
that's why we chose our Grenache because it has wonderful
mm.
cherry and mulled kind of fruit flavors. You could choose a Pinot Noir
What
to
about a
do.
rosé, since it's rosé week coming up? Or is that too dry?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if I would choose a rosé
Hmm.
necessarily to
Okay.
make a sangria. I would choose because you have so many other flavors that a rosé
Hmm.
brings to the table that you're adding to it that you
Hmm.
might not want to use a rosé. So
Hmm.
I would use a Grenache, a Pinot Noir, maybe a Sangiovese,
Mm.
maybe um, maybe a Syrah for a little bit bolder.
I think this is interesting on how you make yours. You've got a little bit of orange juice, just a little,
Yeah,
a quarter of what you do for the Grenache, a quarter ounce of simple syrup, and you can do less if you want it drier. A little teeny bit of lemonade, pomegranate juice. That's what's interesting to me. A little bit of Sprite, right? I mean that. Well,
yes,
you've got
yeah.
to have
At
the
the
Sprite.
finish, you finish
Yeah,
it with a Sprite.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah. Finish it. Yeah, floater at the top. No kidding.
yep,
Um, but the fruit is interesting to me. So you have a little citrus and pomegranate, orange, lemon, lime for sliced fruit because that could get interesting if I've seen people put grapes, they've put melon, they just kind of do whatever fruit. And I think there's got to be the balance of what you've got to kind of look at what you're putting in there, like the fruit and the wine.
absolutely. Because you don't you're balancing the sugar and the sweetness and the acidity all in that. So you want a really well balanced
Mm,
drink, but you also want to pick out the nuances like we've
mm.
talked about with just the wine. So my staff created this. They worked on
Wow.
different formulas. They worked
Oh,
together
that's
to
cool.
create our LDV. And they haven't sent me the recipe. They just figured out a white because you can make sangria out of white wine. So
Yes.
they just figured out what they feel is the best formula for our white sangria. So I'll
It's
send
a
that to
really
you.
tough life. That's a
I know
tough
it,
life.
right? So staff has it rough. They get to talk to
Hey,
people all day and pour wine and make sangria.
okay. I'm coming to hang
So
out with you. I'm coming to hang
yeah,
out with you. I love that. I love that. Now, what would you pair with this, for nibbles? This sangria is great. You know what I like about it is you've got a little bit of, like the Sprite and things like that, that kind of you're not heavy pounding your wine,
right, right,
during a summer day. You need to keep, to have some water in between, keep hydrated. And a lot of times we're having fruit like, watermelon and cantaloupe and honeydews and, all those kinds of things. And I think even cheese is kind of a little bit of salt and crackers, like sweet
right,
and salty you want with that, just
right.
for your electrolytes, right?
Yeah, and I think this is such a refreshing drink, so it's perfect for summer and sitting on the patio. Tapas, this would be a great if
Mm.
you're doing a variety of different appetizers. Dates are starting
Ooh,
to, and figs are starting to really grow in our garden, and this would be a perfect
ooh.
with a stuffed fig or a fig by itself. Would be great with sangria and other kinds of little appetizers would be perfect. You want to
Mm.
eat light with a sparkling kind of wonderful drink like this.
Prosciutto and dates. You were
Prosciutto
talking
and
about dates?
melon or
Ooh,
dates.
ooh.
Yeah,
Like what are those little they take like dates, the medjool dates. They come out of Yuma, Arizona. Our friend
yeah,
Donna from the Peanut Patch has them. She grows them
yeah,
and well, not grows them, but has them and from Yuma. And they're pesticide free because they
yeah.
naturally do not have them. And these are it's different than Indio, California. I've had a very big education on dates, seriously.
Okay.
We've been out on farms and done videos and all kinds. What happens in Indio stays in Indio, and what happens in Yuma stays in Indio. I mean, in Yuma, but
Okay.
everybody imports them from Yuma because these are the royal medjool dates,
Right.
which come
Yeah.
from Morocco, and they
Right.
naturally grow. It's like their same environment, which is different than Indio. In
Right.
Indio, there are dates, but they are not the royal medjools. That and if they have some, they came from Yuma first. They were the first ones
Yeah.
in this country and only to do it, and I find this fascinating. And because they're so big and juicy, like they're perfect for summer food. Like they're
Absolutely.
perfect. I freeze them and then
Oh,
like oh yeah.
okay.
If you take frozen grapes, oh my gosh,
Oh, yeah.
frozen
I
grapes
know
you could
that.
put. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you anyway the medjool date because they're so nice and plump and juicy. You stuff them like with the jalapenos and cream
Yep.
cheese and wrap them in bacon and put them on the grill. Come on, you could do that with sangria, right? A little bit of that's kind of a little southwestern.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be
Oh,
awesome. No, sangria is just a fun drink to have in summertime. It just screams
mm,
summertime and on the patio. The one thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about putting ice in your wine, ju- people need to remember if you have leftover wine, put them into ice cubes. And so I would feel better if you're drinking a white wine and you have that white wine in an ice cube form that you take out of your freezer and put it in that white wine. So if you have a favorite white wine and you didn't drink the whole bottle of it, turn it into ice cubes. And then when you have a glass of that wine on the patio and you have to put ice in it, use those ice cubes to put in your white wine.
oh, now you've given Nancy and I a whole other way of transporting our wine across the country to keep it cool. Just
Absolutely.
make a bunch of ice and take it.
Yeah,
Wine ice. I love this. I love
wine
this.
ice.
Well, before
Absolutely.
you go, I do not want to leave the term of the month, which is tendrils.
Yes.
And that goes really well
Tendrils.
back to the beginning. We've come full circle. Back to the beginning of
Yeah,
what we were talking about, how the vineyard's like, hey, we're happy, we're growing. And yeah, it sounds like you have a whole nursery out there. You've got a
we
bunch of
do.
kids ready to roll. Yeah.
We do, we do, and those tendrils are those little shoots that you see on on climbing plants
Mm,
like pea or string beans. They'll also have tendrils because they climb to lift the plant off the ground, obviously, or train them off the ground. So we have those little tendrils that we have growing, and they grab on to things, and they grab on to hopefully the fruiting wire.
mm,
So it begins to provide structure for the entire vine. And what we don't want to have happen is, when we go through and check,
mm,
remember on the cordon, so this
mm,
is the cordon, we have positions along
mm,
there. And we have 8 of those that we prune to have 8 positions along there. And that's where the vine will go up from each of those positions. And that's where we want the grapes to occur. Well, we want to make sure that when we have a position, we don't have any tendrils coming out of the
mm.
bottom of it or between the two
Oh,
positions. So we check and we pull those off because they can harm or
but they're
strangle.
pretty.
They're pretty, but we want them up here. We want them clinging
Yeah.
onto the
Wow.
fruiting wire. So again, training training those little things that happen on the vine to make sure
And if
that
they
it's
don't
doing
listen
what.
to Kurt, Peggy's going to come out just like that
Correct.
beignet. You will come out on time.
Correct, exactly. So we're checking for that, but tendrils are an important part of the vine, and it
Wow.
is important for the growing of each of the grapevines, and we like them. And but
We like them, but only in the right places.
oh, and they'll grab on if you put your finger around it, and they'll grab on, and
Oh
you
yeah,
really,
yeah.
they're tight. They
Isn't
grow.
that trip? I used to do that with passion fruit
Yeah,
because we used to grow a lot of passion fruit in Kenya. It would just it. I mean, you'd go outside. We had fruit every. I mean, it was just
uh,
paradise that way. And as kids, we would mess with them because even the flower itself, like a cactus, if you go up to a cactus
right,
blossom and you stick your finger in the middle, it's like a sea anemone. The
right.
flower itself will go
Goes
around you
up.
because it thinks that you're a bee, like a
Right.
pollinator, and it closes you in so that you can get all the pollen and do all that little stuff and then move on. But it's
Uh-huh.
a trip when plants do that. You're like, whoa, dude.
Whoa, they're
I
alive. They're
know.
alive.
I know it's like the day of the Triffids, right? Okay,
Yeah.
we won't go there because we're talking wine,
Yeah.
and but I do love that movie. But
Yeah.
Peggy, always fun. Everyone, summer is a good time to get together with friends and have some mighty fine wine. So joy to
Yeah.
the world for that. So
Yeah.
everyone, ldvwinery.com. Thank you so much. Always fun, Peggy.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show. Keep up with LDV Winery at ldvwinery.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.